Stephanie Vaquer didn't walk into WWE as a blank slate. She arrived with moments so explosive, so controversial, and so easy to miss that if you only know the polished version, you're missing the real story. And once you see what got brushed aside, her rise starts looking a lot less accidental. Most WWE fans met Stephanie Vaquer when she showed up on NXT and almost instantly felt important. Not just new signing with potential important either, but the kind of importance where you could tell the company already had real plans for her. That is what makes her story interesting. If you only watch the WWE version, it can feel like she appeared out of thin air, got treated like a star, and then kept climbing. But once you pull back a little, the picture gets a lot more complete. And honestly, a lot more interesting too. Because Stephanie Vaquer did not walk into WWE as some mystery project the company needed to build from the ground up. WWE had looked at her years earlier. Back in December 2018, she was part of WWE's Chile tryout. That does not mean she was secretly signed back then. It does not mean some grand 5-year master plan was already in motion. It just means the company knew who she was long before most WWE fans did. That detail matters because fans love pretending a debut is the start of everything. A wrestler shows up on TV, gets a reaction, wins a match, and suddenly history begins right there. That is usually not how pro wrestling works. Companies scout people for years. They track development. They watch who keeps improving, who gets trusted elsewhere, who looks more complete every time they pop up again. So when Vaquer eventually landed on WWE television and did not feel like a random call-up or a warm body filling out the division, that was not an accident. There had already been a trail leading there. Before WWE fans started talking about Stephanie Vaquer like she was the next big thing in NXT, she was already doing real work elsewhere. Not the kind of work that gets treated like a cute little footnote either. Real title history, real momentum, real proof that people outside WWE were already taking her seriously. To understand why that matters, you have to understand what CMLL actually is. This is not some regional indie promotion running shows in a school gymnasium. CMLL, which stands for Consejo Mundial de Lucha Libre, is the oldest professional wrestling promotion in the world, founded in 1933. It is one of the two major pillars of Lucha Libre alongside AAA, and it carries genuine institutional weight in Mexico and across Latin America. When CMLL puts a title on somebody, that title has nearly a century of history behind it. That context does not make every CMLL champion automatically a world beater, but it does mean the credibility attached to those championships is real, not manufactured. In September 2023, Vaquer and Zeuxis became the first CMLL World Women's Tag Team Champions. That alone tells you she was not just floating around the scene hoping somebody important would notice her. Being the first name attached to a title gives a wrestler a certain kind of permanence. It says this was not some throwaway booking choice made for one random night. The promotion decided these two women were the right faces to launch something new. That is a statement of trust, and trust inside a promotion with that kind of history carries weight. Then, later that same month, she beat La Catalina to win the CMLL World Women's Championship. Once somebody starts stacking title wins like that, you are not really talking about a prospect anymore. You are talking about somebody trusted enough to carry part of a division. And in CMLL, carrying the women's division means representing the promotion on one of the most historically significant stages in professional wrestling. That word matters in pro wrestling: trusted. Fans focus on buzz because buzz is loud and easy. Trust is quieter, but it usually tells you more. A promotion can put a spotlight on a wrestler for a night. Trusting them with championships is different. It says people behind the scenes believe this person can represent something. Vaquer backed that up in November 2023 when she successfully defended the CMLL World Women's Championship against Luvia. Winning a title is one thing. Defending it is where a moment starts turning into a run. In March 2023, a serious legal matter became part of Stephanie Vaquer's public timeline. This is where the conversation has to shift out of wrestling fan mode for a minute, because this is not kayfabe, it is not storyline, and it is not one of those fake backstage scandals that gets blown up for clicks. Vaquer filed a complaint against former partner Rogelio Reyes, known in pro wrestling as Cuatrero. Cuatrero was a member of Los Dinamitas, one of the more prominent factions working CMLL at the time. So this was not a complaint filed against just some anonymous figure on the edges of the industry. This was a public allegation involving a recognizable name inside the same professional world Vaquer was operating in every week. After that, CMLL issued a public statement supporting Vaquer, condemning violence against women, and asking people to treat the situation with respect. That kind of institutional response is not automatic in professional wrestling. The industry has a long and uncomfortable history of promotions looking the other way, staying quiet, or outright protecting people accused of serious misconduct. CMLL choosing to put out a public statement in support of Vaquer was a meaningful step, even if it was also the bare minimum of what the situation called for. Reporting later documented that Reyes had been detained, and further reporting said he was linked to the process on charges of attempted femicide and family violence. Those are not minor legal categories. Attempted femicide carries specific legal and cultural weight in Mexico, where femicide laws have become an increasingly prominent part of the public conversation around violence against women. When those charges entered the reporting, the situation became impossible to treat as a simple industry gossip story, and that is usually where people go wrong. Wrestling fans, gossip pages, random accounts, everybody starts trying to turn a real-world situation into a drama script. They start filling empty spaces with theories, turning careful reporting into certainty, or treating serious personal matters like they are just another angle to debate online. What matters here is that this was part of the public record around Vaquer's life and career, running alongside everything else happening professionally. She was building championship credibility at CMLL while simultaneously navigating something that would have derailed or at least significantly disrupted most people's professional lives. The fact that her career momentum did not collapse during this period is not something to gloss over or treat as a minor footnote. It is part of the texture of the story, because real life usually does not pause just because a wrestler has title momentum. Fans love clean arcs. This person struggled, then this person rose, then this person signed, then this person became a star. Nice and tidy. Real lives do not move like that. Different chapters overlap. Serious personal realities can exist at the same time as major career steps, and the person living through them does not get to press pause on one while they sort out the other. That is part of what makes a fuller version of Vaquer's story worth telling. Not because everything needs to be turned into a moral lesson, not because the legal chapter should define her, it should not. But if you pretend it is not part of the timeline, then you are just giving the corporate trailer version. And the corporate trailer version always leaves out the parts that make the person actually human. By early 2024, Stephanie Vaquer was no longer just somebody doing strong work in one place. Her name was starting to carry across different companies, and that is when a wrestler begins to feel like more than a solid act. That is when they start feeling like a real asset that multiple organizations want attached to their product. On March 10, 2024, Vaquer defeated Julia to win the NJPW Strong Women's Championship. To understand why that result matters, you need a little context about both the title and the person she beat. NJPW, New Japan Pro Wrestling, is one of the most respected professional wrestling promotions in the world. Its strong brand, which runs predominantly for North American audiences, has been a significant platform for women's wrestling in particular. The NJPW Strong Women's Championship was not a title created to give someone something to do. It was positioned as a serious championship with serious competition attached to it, and the women working in that scene were among the better workers in the world at that time. Julia, the woman Vaquer beat for that title, was one of them. Julia had built her reputation in Stardom, Japan's premier women's wrestling promotion, where she had been one of the most prominent names for years. She was not somebody handed a title to keep a belt warm. She was a legitimate champion whose presence in a match automatically raised the perceived importance of it. When Vaquer defeated her, it was not a manufactured upset designed to create buzz. It was a result that the audience watching could take seriously because of what both women had done to earn that moment. At that point, Vaquer had CMLL championship history and now an NJPW title to her name. Different promotions, different audiences, different styles, all of it pointing in the same direction. Once a wrestler starts mattering in more than one place, the argument that it might all be coincidence or favorable booking stops holding up. Momentum like that is earned, not assigned. Forbidden Door on June 30th, 2024 was one of those matches where losing did not make a wrestler feel smaller. Stephanie Vaquer lost the NJPW Strong Women's Championship to Mercedes Moné, and obviously that matters. A title change is still a title change. Still, some losses place a wrestler in front of a bigger audience than ever before. Forbidden Door was a joint AEW and NJPW event, which meant the viewership was not limited to one company's regular audience. For viewers who had followed Vaquer before, it felt like a checkpoint. For viewers who had not, it was the kind of high-profile match on a high-profile card that gets people paying attention fast. Losing to Mercedes Moné in that setting is not the same as losing to anybody. It is getting a feature moment on a major stage, even if the result does not go your way. And then, almost immediately, the story changed. On July 10, 2024, CMLL and NJPW announced that Vaquer had left both rosters effective immediately for personal reasons. The announcement also said she had been stripped of the CMLL World Women's Championship and the CMLL World Women's Tag Team Championship. That is a clean break. July 2024 stands out clearly as the dividing line. Before that, Vaquer was a champion working across multiple promotions. After that, that version of the story was over. The public explanation was what it was. Personal reasons, immediate exit, titles, strip. Anything beyond that is guesswork, and guesswork is where people ruin otherwise solid wrestling stories. One career chapter closed, another one was about to open, and when the next chapter started, it started fast. By September 2024, Stephanie Vaquer was on WWE television. Her first appearance came during an NXT press conference-style segment involving Roxanne Perez and Julia on September 24, 2024. That was not a blink-and-you-miss-it cameo. It was a deliberate arrival scene. WWE was placing her directly into a conversation with names the NXT audience already had opinions about, and the message was clear. This woman matters now. Not later, not eventually, now. Then, on October 15, 2024, Vaquer won her televised WWE in-ring debut against Ren Sinclair. The way WWE books debut matches tells you a lot about how much confidence the company has in a new signing. A cautious, slow-burn approach means the company is still figuring out the audience's reaction. A clean win in a well-presented match means the company already knows what it wants. Vaquer's debut looked like the latter. The second Stephanie Vaquer got pulled into the NXT title scene, the whole run sped up in a way that was hard to miss. On January 7, 2025, Vaquer won a fatal four-way to become the #1 contender to the NXT Women's North American Championship. Fatal four-way matches are interesting booking tools. They can be used to protect multiple people in a loss, or to give a decisive win extra credibility because the winner had to beat multiple opponents at once. In this case, it did the latter. Vaquer did not slip through the back door of a contendership. She won it in a crowded match, which set up what came next with some legitimate earned momentum behind it. Then, on February 15, 2025, at Vengeance Day, she defeated Fallon Henley to win the NXT Women's North American Championship. Henley had been an important part of NXT's women's division for a while, and she was not positioned as an easy first stepping stone. The match was framed as a real title contest, not a coronation with an obstacle in the way. WWE also attached the milestone of Vaquer becoming the first female South American champion in WWE history to that win. Companies lean on milestone framing when they want a moment to feel larger than the match itself, and in this case, it worked because the milestone was genuine. Then, on March 11, 2025, at Roadblock, Vaquer defeated Julia in a champion versus champion match to win the NXT Women's Championship. Think about what that booking was communicating. Julia had been positioned as one of the top names in NXT since her own arrival. Putting her across from Vaquer in a champion versus champion match was not a throwaway main event. It was WWE saying, "These are the two women at the top of this division right now, and we want you to walk away from this show knowing exactly where the hierarchy stands." The result made Vaquer the first woman to hold both NXT titles simultaneously. That is the kind of milestone that could have felt hollow if the matches leading to it had been weak. They were not. By the time the double title moment happened, it had been built with real opponents and real stakes. It landed because the work supported it. Think about the pace. First TV appearance in late September 2024. First televised match in October. #1 contender in January.
Looking for the SVP.
North American Champion in February, Double Champion in March. That is a company that had made its decision and was not interested in second-guessing it. March 25, 2025 was the kind of night that exists to hammer a point home. On that episode of NXT, Vaquer successfully defended both titles, defeating Jada Parker and Fallon Henley on the same show. 2 title defenses, 2 different opponents, one night. That is not a subtle booking. That is WWE making absolutely sure that nobody watching could walk away uncertain about who the centerpiece of this division was. Parker in particular was not a soft choice for a defense. She had been built as a physical, credible threat in NXT, and putting her in a title match was not just filling out a card. It was giving Vaquer a defense that had some teeth. When Vaquer retained, the win meant something because the opponent meant something. Then on April 1st, 2025, Vaquer vacated the NXT Women's North American Championship. The Double Champion chapter had done what it was designed to do. The historic moment had happened. The dominant defense had happened. Vacating one belt to focus on the other is a well-worn booking move, but it only feels right when the reign being narrowed down to already feels like the bigger deal. In this case, it did. At Stand and Deliver on April 19, 2025, Vaquer defeated Julia, Jordynne Grace, and Jada Parker in a fatal 4-way to retain the NXT Women's Championship. Stand and Deliver is NXT's WrestleMania weekend showcase, which means it draws a larger audience than a standard NXT Premium Live event. Retaining the title in that setting, in a match with 3 legitimate opponents, reinforced that WWE was not treating this as a transitional reign. Then on April 22nd, she defeated Roxanne Perez in another title match, adding another credible name to the list of people who had come for the title and came up short. On April 21st, 2025, Vaquer made her Raw debut against Women's World Champion Io Sky. NXT title reigns matter, but they can feel self-contained. A Raw debut against the Women's World Champion is a different kind of statement. It tells you WWE is ready to position this person in the larger conversation, not just the NXT bubble. The match did not stay clean. Julia and Roxanne Perez interfered, and Rhea Ripley made the save. This was an angle as much as it was a match, which is a normal way WWE uses Raw to set up future stories, but the placement still mattered. Stephanie Vaquer versus Io Sky for the Women's World Championship is not a filler segment. It is a main roster feature moment, and being given that moment this early into her WWE run said a lot. On May 25, 2025, Vaquer defeated Jordynne Grace at Battleground to retain the NXT Women's Championship. 2 days later, Jacy Jayne defeated Vaquer to win the NXT Women's Championship. Title losses do not always mean decline. Sometimes they mean the next step is already waiting. Vaquer later returned to Raw as the Women's World Champion after defeating Io Sky for the vacant title at WrestlePalooza in September 2025. Suddenly, the NXT title loss does not look like a collapse. It looks like a door opening. There is one more layer to this story that deserves its own space because it connects everything to something bigger than titles and booking decisions. Stephanie Vaquer is Chilean. She grew up in a country where professional wrestling is not a mainstream cultural institution. She built her career largely through lucha libre, a tradition rooted in Mexico and deeply woven into Latin American identity. And she eventually became the first female South American champion in WWE history. That is not a small thing, and it would be easy to let it get buried under all the match results and title changes. But representation in a global entertainment company like WWE carries real weight for real people. There are kids in Chile and across South America watching NXT and Raw who are seeing somebody who looks like them, sounds like them, comes from a place like theirs, and is being treated by the biggest wrestling company in the world like she belongs at the very top. WWE has made real efforts in recent years to expand its global footprint and reflect a more international roster. But intent and outcome are different things. The outcome in Vaquer's case is that a woman from Santiago climbed through CMLL, won a title in Japan, and then went to WWE and became a double champion on one brand before moving up to a world title on another. That trajectory is not just an inspiring individual story. It sends a signal to every Latin American wrestler grinding on the independent scene or in a regional promotion that the ceiling is not where it used to be, and it matters that it happened through work. Vaquer was not signed and immediately handed a storyline designed to make her feel important. She came in with a resume, the company recognized the resume, and then the booking reflected it. That is the version of representation that actually means something. Not a cosmetic gesture, but a structural acknowledgement that the work done outside WWE WWE's walls was real, and that the person who did it deserved to be treated accordingly. So when people talk about Stephanie Vaquer like she just showed up one day and got handed the fast pass, they are only telling the neat version. The fuller version is harder to squeeze into a quick highlight package, but it explains way more. WWE is very good at presenting the arrival. It is less interested in telling the full backstory unless it directly helps the current angle. So the earlier chapters can get lost, not because they are fake, not because they do not matter, but because TV moves on and weekly programming does not stop to give new viewers a history lesson. Keep those chapters in though, and you get something better than a clean WWE success story. You get a real career path, one with institutional credibility built inside one of wrestling's oldest promotion, cross-promotional momentum earned in Japan against legitimate competition, a serious real-world chapter that existed alongside professional milestones and did not erase them, a clean breakpoint in July 2024 that ended one version of the story and made room for another, and then one of the fastest, most deliberately constructed climbs WWE has given a woman in recent memory. She did not come out of nowhere. She came out of a career a lot of WWE fans had not fully followed yet. There is a huge difference between those two things, and once you understand that difference, the conviction behind every step of her WWE run starts making a lot more sense. That is the real through line. WWE was not experimenting with Stephanie Vaquer. It was betting on her, and the foundation that bet was built on had been laid long before WWE's cameras ever found her. What are your thoughts on Stephanie Vaquer? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section, and before you leave, don't forget to like this video and subscribe so you don't miss the next ones.